Mr. Bryan. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge Reverend Jesse Jackson, who just joined us. Good morning, everybody. No. See, the Bible says, be hot or be cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out. Translation, even God doesn't like mediocrity. You're going to do it right. Stand in the gap, do it with everything you've got, all the energy you've got. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. See, now you're all honorary black people. Every time I traveled into Memphis, every time I touched down in Memphis, typically late at night. By the way, you are a living testimony to, I think, what Dr. King and that man, Ambassador Andrew Young, gave all their life for. So commendation. And I think that's important because history never feels historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that doesn't mean it's not historic. Johnny Moore, who's running all of SunTrust for this region. Stand up, Johnny. Black man who's running banking in this region, and this young lady and so many other heroes and sheroes are not accidents. Yeah, they're brilliant, but somebody gave their life and opened doors in order for them to have the possibilities to show their excellence, back to the point. So when I would come to the airport late at night, not many people around, I would wonder, is this what it looked like when Dr. King was here? But more so, I'd be a little sad. Because I knew that this global spokesman, this Nobel Peace Prize winner, this not community leader, not national leader, not black leader, not a black leader, he was a great leader who happened to be black. That commanded the world stage and had the world's respect, who came here for the benefit of sanitation workers, for a poor people's campaign, and could have detoured and gone to Washington, did not have to come here, had every reason not to be here. Ambassador Young had encouraged Dr. King to get some rest. Early that morning, said you can sleep until noon. And he decided, no, I've got to change my schedule. I got to go back to Memphis. I got to support folks who are invisible, the sanitation workers. And when I come in to the airport, I'm always looking for some symbol, some significance, some recognition of this global leader who gave his life so that we might have life. And I didn't see anything. And I know people mean well. I know the airport authority is running a wonderful, efficient operation. But when you're going through your life, you may not understand the context of your life. And sometimes it takes an outsider to point to something obvious. Now, I pointed to it, but somebody's got to respond. And what I'm really commending here is not that I or somebody else pointed to it, or that Ambassador Young thought it was a good idea, or that Dr. Bernice King, Dr. King's daughter, who approved the text of the marker, thought it was a brilliant recognition of her father. I'm commending Bryan Jordan, who I called as CEO of First Tennessee. This is not his job. He had nothing to do with the airport. And I said, I thought this was important. And he said, I think it's important too. And I said, I don't know whether the airport commission will do this, but I know one of the issues will be cost. He said, John, I'll zero out the cost. See, he's not going to say this. I don't even think he's on the program today. And then Johnny Moore and SunTrust said, if there's anything left over, we'll do it. We'll step up. And they said, we don't need any recognition. We don't need any credit for it. We just want to do the right thing. And then First Tennessee went on to the airport commission, and Kim Cherry and others started talking to officials here in the city. And then I heard that the city was supportive and the airport commission was supportive. But you know, you don't expect good things to happen because they're good. So often, good things just die because no one can get the credit. But somehow, with nobody's interest and nobody's being benefited directly, and somehow all the stars align, and the next thing I hear is the commission has approved this, and John hears what the plaque will look like. And I just want to stop now and say thank you for people doing the right thing just because it was the right thing. Can we just say thank you? And so I'm going to be very unlike me. I'm going to stop. I believe that my hero is up next. Is Ambassador Young up next? So I get to do something that embarrasses him thoroughly. Johnny knows where I'm going. I am not going to give him the introduction he's used to or he desires. He is the most unselfish person you'll ever meet. That's the closest thing we got to Nelson Mandela alive today, Ambassador Andrew Young, in the world. And whenever you see a picture of him and Dr. King, don't trust me. Go search this on the internet. You'll see Andrew Young looking up for threats, looking to the side for threats. He's never focused on himself. The camera is never on him. He's always 100% of the time trying to protect his friend. It was never about him. Lieutenant to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., strategist in the civil rights movement, ordained minister, father, mayor of Atlanta for 2 terms, created the only international city in the South, Atlanta, Georgia, brought the Olympic Games to Atlanta, co-chair of the Atlanta Olympic Games, privately funded. First black UN ambassador in the history of the United States of America. First black congressman elected to Congress since Reconstruction. Holder of, hold on now, 130 honorary doctorate degrees. I got one. Presidential Medal of Freedom awardee, French Foreign Legion awardee. Are you starting to get this? I can go on and on and on. He doesn't want me to. Chairman of the Africa Channel. This is what we call in my neighborhood a bad brother. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming a living legend, a wonderful human being, my personal hero, my mentor, Ambassador Andrew Young.
Thanks very much, John, and we've been joined, as I said, by Jesse Jackson, who was here with us 49 years ago. But we were not here for a racial reason. We were here basically because in 1957, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference organized itself to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of racism, war, and poverty. Now, we had not completely eliminated racism, but we have eliminated legal racism. And we have gone a long way. I think the election of Jimmy Carter proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the United States could lead the world and not kill anybody and not get anybody killed. We talked about Jimmy Carter as a peanut farmer, but very few people realize that he was a nuclear physicist whom Admiral Rickover selected out of 500 naval officers to be his deputy in establishing a nuclear navy for the purpose of preventing war. And because Jimmy Carter knew so much about nuclear destruction, he created a climate in which for 4 years, no American soldier got killed in battle and no American soldier killed anybody in battle. And that meant that we had made at least a significant demonstration on war, as we had with 2 and 3 civil rights bills, on race. But in January of 1968, Dr. King invited 23 different groups of poor people. They were not just black poor people, they were Hispanic poor people, they were Native American poor people, they were Appalachian white poor people, they were white people from the cities of Chicago and from the slums of the North and South. And the one thing that we had in common was that we were all God's children who were not yet fully participating in the blessings of these United States. And so that was what the Poor People's Campaign was all about. It sort of came to an end, it seemed, when Martin Luther King was shot here in Memphis. But I don't think we believe that it came to an end. In fact, Jesse Jackson went back to Chicago and started Operation Breadbasket, Operation Push, all of which were about dealing with the economics of America and helping people to understand that the more poor people got on the bottom, doesn't matter what color they were, the healthier we are at the bottom of the pyramid, the more prosperous we are going to be at the top. And it does not make sense to try to keep some people poor. In fact, poor people are the lifeblood of the American economy. Because whether we have anything or not, we always want something. And we're the last ones to stop buying in the recession. And that has nothing to do with color. I was proud of John Bryan for suggesting this, because I think that what he is doing, along with what Jesse Jackson has been doing for the last 49 years, and even before that, was trying to focus the attention of America on the least of these God's children. Both Jesse and I regret, but never can forget, the fact that the only time we saw Martin Luther King mad was a couple of days before he came here. And though he didn't use any profanity, he cussed us up and down and made us feel like we were absolutely nothing. Why? Because neither of us wanted him to come to Memphis. But he felt that this was where he was being called. And we didn't want to hear that. Just like the disciples didn't want Jesus to go to Jerusalem. And I'm not saying Martin's Jesus. I'm saying that he used to say to us all the time, look, death is the ultimate democracy. Everybody's gonna die. And you don't have anything to say about how you die. You don't have anything to say about when you die. Your only decision is what is it you give your life for. And he has decided, I think, that his life was nearing its end. He was wearing down. And he didn't want to be with us in New York. He didn't want to be with us in Washington. And so he got up from a meeting at midnight, and rather than sleeping late the next day, he said, I'm going to catch the 6 o'clock flight to Memphis. And he said, you go back to bed, I'll meet you in Washington. Well, he never got to Washington. We were bogged down in Memphis. But he wanted to be with the least of these God's children. He didn't want to be like the priest and the Levite going by on the other side when here were the poorest of the poor who were not given the basic respect of a shelter in the time of storm. One had been killed for taking shelter in the back of his garbage truck. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And he said, no, we've got to do something about that. I said, but we're doing something about that in Washington. He said, yeah, but Washington is going to take a little time. I want to go to Memphis. He came to Memphis to try to end poverty. Now, Dr. Abernathy's eulogy was, let us slay the dreamer, and we will see then what shall become of his dreams. Now, the movement has never been dead. The movement has continued in a wide variety of ways. When I was trying to bring in foreign investment into Atlanta, it was to create jobs. When we tried to bring the Olympics to Atlanta, it was to create jobs. And we were working with the city, and since I had been thrust into that job as mayor, the whole purpose was to try to alleviate poverty. Now, the only problem with poverty is we were less than 1 million people, now we're 6.5 million people. We had 30% of our population poor. When we were 1 million people, we still got 30% of our population poor, and we're 6.5 million people. Now, the other 70% are doing very, very well. So well is shocking. But we have not yet found a way to put an end to the struggles of the least of these God's children, whatever their color may be. Now, John Bryan came up with something that I decided was unique. I don't know whether he knew what he was doing, but poverty was too complex for us. Going to Washington, we had demonstrations in front of agriculture, we had demonstrations in front of education, we had demonstrations planned in front of health and human services. I mean, almost every agency of government would have had to do miracles to put an end to poverty. And it's just been too complex. No matter what I did as mayor, and no matter how I tried hard to start from the bottom and raise people up, government had a hard time doing it. When John talked to me about credit scores, frankly, with all of my degrees and all of my positions, I didn't know what a credit score was. And yet, the more I thought about it, if your credit score is below 500, no matter what color you are, you're poor. You get your credit score up to 700, and suddenly you have a new level of self-respect. And so this part of the civil rights movement is, just as we understood you could not be free if you were in a democracy without the right to vote, you can't be free in the system of free enterprise if you don't have access to money. And the best way to get access to money, and there is no shortage of money in the world. We've got more money in this planet than we've ever had before in history. We have more technology, and we have more understanding of human needs. But the complication is getting the need, the technology, and the money together. And governments are going to be struggling with that for a long time. But each individual can take responsibility for himself or herself and her own economic plight simply by raising your credit score a couple of 100 points. Now, John and Operation Hope have figured out how to do that in 6 months or less. And if you can work your way up the ladder, if you can understand your credit score, if you can get some help from these banks that have volunteered to bring Operation Hope inside the bank, and it's called Hope Inside, and the churches decide that they're going to have Operation Hope chapters just to sit down and help people to get their finances in order. Now, this isn't for poor people. After having been an ambassador a mayor, a congressman, and all these degrees that they talk about, which really just some way of giving you a piece of paper rather than paying your salary. But anyway, it's okay. I don't mean to play it cheap, except that I've always got honors and never got any money, but that's my problem. But one of the things that happened to me when somebody who knew about money, a young lady who just graduated from Spelman, sat down with me and my wife and said, wait a minute, you all been out doing good for everybody else, but you all are kind of messed up. And she laid out all of our bills and looked at all of our interest rates and refinanced and just taught us basic home economics. They used to teach that in high school. They stopped. But they saved me $973 a month. See, now, financial literacy is not for poor folk. It's not for young folk. All of you all, everybody in this room is messed up financially. Maybe even the bankers. Because they've got to struggle with banking regulators, and they've got to not only keep their own money straight, they've got to keep the money straight for the whole town. And every mayor in every city in America practically is struggling with debt. The United States government has got more debt, and the debt is equal to the budget, $20 trillion roughly. We all need financial literacy, believe it or not, but the Congress does not understand the economic system that they are governing. Very, very few of them, see? And they don't realize we're in a global economy, and they've still got local community economics. But that's the challenge that is continuing Dr. King's work, and that's why I think this is not, for me, promoting or remembering the past. This is Memphis declaring that we're going to carry on in the name of Martin Luther King to put an end to poverty in this community. And we're not just stopping here. One of the other things that excited me about this was that across the river, across the border into Mississippi, there's another community bank, which happens to be in a predominantly white community. But in Mississippi, nothing is all white or all black. They're more integrated than they ever want to admit. But we will be doing the same thing with the bank's branches in Mississippi as we are in Memphis, as we are in Atlanta, as we are in Los Angeles. And so I know I've taken too long, but I wanted to make sure that we are not celebrating the past. We are charting the course of the future to realize that we have within our own power to start ending poverty in our own lives first. And then we can help our children and our children's children. I got a better start basically because my parents were Depression people, and they knew how to save, and they knew how to manage money. Unfortunately, I got away from that. So we come from a time when this was a well-run country economically to a time when we still now are burdened by the problems of poverty, which is really, we haven't developed economics that meets the needs of all of our citizens. And so this plaque, for me, represents a continuation of Martin Luther King's ministry. And so the answer to Ralph Abernathy's question, let us slay the dreamer, and we will see then what shall become of his dreams. What has become of his dream in Memphis is that we're picking it up 49 years later, and that we're going to carry it on, and that we will end poverty in these United States of America. And this group, from all of the diversity that you represent, are coming together in the same spirit in which we came to Memphis 49 years ago, to carry on the work of the Lord. I just turned 85 a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not thinking about making it here, I'm thinking about getting in. And you know what Jesus said? He's not going to ask you about your bank account. He's not going to ask you how much you went to church. He's not going to ask you about all your sins and all the things. Did you feed my hungry? When I was hungry, did you give me to eat? When I was thirsty, did you give me to drink? When I was sick and in prison, did you see about me? In as much as you did it to the least of these, my brother, see? And then Isaiah says, yeah, wait on the Lord, be of good courage. See? And you have to set at liberty those who are oppressed. And this was what Dr. King talked about for the entire ministry of his very brief life. But he has not died. There's not only a 30-foot statue in Washington. I think we have the heart and spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King in the mind and the conscience of each and every person here who in your own way will carry on his ministry. And I've never felt that Martin was dead. I always felt that when I got these crazy ideas in the middle of the night, that they didn't come from my mind. But there was something that was a spirit moving through this country from him that is still alive. And we're putting a commemorative plaque up just to show that we know that his work is still left undone, and that we in Memphis and Mississippi and Georgia and Alabama, Louisiana, and frankly, all up the Mississippi River, still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to get it done. Thank you, citizens of Memphis.
We would like to bring Reverend Jesse Jackson up to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning. A kind of happenstance, I was coming to Memphis today to be at the Mount Olive CMU Church tonight with Bishop Williamson. We'll be tonight at 7 o'clock. And on the way to work today and at Lane College tomorrow, I heard this commotion, and that was Andy and John Bryan. Let me thank John for being one of Dr. King's staff members. Some said, well, he never met Dr. King. Paul never met Jesus. But he was a member of his staff because he embraced his spirit. John Bryan has never stopped at figuring out ways to break the cycle of poverty. Because to be in capitalism without capitalism, to live on the ism, and that's the gravy without the meat, and that's grease and water. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I want to express my thanks in a special way to one of the most phenomenal human beings I've met in my life, who is a mentor, a friend, a comrade. Dr. King will often remind us that he was the pilot of the plane, we had the ground crew. And sometimes he would say that he had a team of wild horses. And Andy was the most stable among the horses. And we thank you, Andy, so much. And thank God for allowing us to still have you as a living testament of God's goodness. Andy Young is a very special human being, and made special by his brilliance and his humility. A big hand for Andy, please. A real good hand. Bishop Henry Williams, a member of that staff with his one church, one school, one now senior bishop in the CMU Church, who has this compassion for the people and who is fighting for the CMU hospital built in Memphis, the first black hospital built in the country, coming out of slavery. We thank you for that work of love. I remain constantly disturbed in part because as I look at these trophies and plaques of Dr. King, it's easier to admire him than to follow him. There's a bust of him behind Trump's budget, behind his desk. There was some commotion about his bust being removed from behind the desk. But if you raise the defense budget by $54 billion, and you raise the veterans budget and Homeland Security, you cut education by $9 billion and cut healthcare by $9 billion, you might well take the bus down. He's about the living Dr. King is about seeing the budget as a model document. That's how he measured the document. I often think about the fact that even today, the government workers for whom we work don't have collective bargaining yet, 49 years later. We're still fighting to lift the poor from the bottom of structural poverty. Those who work harder and harder make less and less. By structural, I mean you may be ever so well intentioned, but you got a size 10 shoe and a size 8 foot. You don't have a foot problem, you have a shoe problem. It also says, I think about it, I closed our last staff meeting before coming to Memphis. And it was so critical of that meeting, Dr. King said, for us to come rather huddle to a Saturday morning meeting, the meeting I had referred to. And we didn't want to come. We were all doing, it was midnight. And Raphael had to call us from around the country. About 10 of us met in his basement. We'd had this up meeting January 15th where he had blacks and Latinos and Native Americans and Jews and the like come together on a fighting for a poor-rich campaign. His vision was a floor beneath which no one would fall. A job, an income, and health care for every American. And he had Appalachians in the room, and blacks and the like. And on that day, he said, around 10 on a Saturday morning, I really have had a migraine headache for 4 days. And has been with me and his wife, Jean, Raph and Juanita, and Coretta and I. And I thought maybe I should just quit. Maybe I've done as much as I could do in 39 years, in 13 years, he said. And is 85, I'm 75. We've lived longer twice than he lived. And yet he was making that projection from that. It was a rather sad statement. I think I should quit. Maybe I haven't done as much as I could do. And Andy said, Dr. King, please don't talk that way. It was said with a certain pathos. He said, Andy, be quiet. Don't tell me to say peace, peace. When there's no peace, sometimes I feel so alone. And that gripped all of us with our attention. He said, maybe our movements become so divided. If I could just fast to the point of death, that my friends with whom I work would gather around me to keep me from dying and we could regroup our unity. There's a certain fracture in our struggle. We cannot make progress with the fracture. And then he said, as he came out of that state, let's go on to Memphis and turn a minus into a plus. Let's go forward. And Memphis on to Washington to engage in civil disobedience, to prepare to go to jail, to choose the war on poverty at home rather than war in Vietnam, because bombs dropped in Vietnam will kill our people in our cities. And it struck me, the parallel to that was Jesus saying, let this cup pass from me. It was as he spoke, disciples slept, and some did sleep in that meeting that Saturday morning. And then not my will but thine be done. We came on to Memphis with great anxiety and trepidation. I see these pictures by Mr. Withers. Dr. King was shot that day. Withers scooped up a jar of blood. It was such a painful sight. We had been here just a few days, John. And I remember we were singing the carousel at the hotel, at the Lorraine Motel, and things happened so fast that day. I was coming across the courtyard, and Reverend Dr. King and Betty Kyles had been in the room together, and Reverend Abernathy. He said, Jesse, you're always so late. We're going to Reverend Kyle's home. You don't even have on a tie. It's about the prerequisite for eating is an appetite, not a tie. He said, "You're crazy." And we laughed, as we've been laughing much of it. He and Anna had been pillow fighting that day. I'll never understand that fight, but thank Dr. King won, knocked Anna down with the pillow. But then, as we talked, the shot rang out, he was killed. Stuff happened so fast. Mrs. Bailey heard about it. She had a heart attack and fell dead in the kitchen at the hotel right there. She never got any acknowledgement. She died. She just died on the spot. I remember Reverend Raphael coming and saying, "Back up, this is my friend." There's a picture of Andy and I pointing this way. We were saying the bullets came from here, not from here. That's where the bullets came from. And Withers was there, and that's why Withers took the picture. And I remember his saying, Mrs. King, I got up and walked to the door next to him where I was staying and called Mrs. King and said, maybe it was from here to where John is sitting. And I couldn't say what I saw because it hit him and it split his tie and went down and blew his chest out. I said, "Ms. King, I think Dr. King has been hit in the shoulders trying to come if you can." She said, I'll get ready. And by that time, I think AP called her and said he was dead. It was such a tragic moment. And yet I think in his spirit, the reason Andy keeps having these king fits, and I have them as well, is that his spirit lives in us. I don't have retirement on my mind. I'm not about to quit till I can't go any further. But he didn't stop Jonathan. He could not go any further. He died, fortunately, with his shoes on. If we have our choice, it ought to be with our shoes on. And he measured America by its values. And I would say this in closing today, at least at that time, it was dusk moving toward, it was dawn moving toward daylight. When I watched that little girl shoot that ball and beat Connecticut last Saturday, that was a Fannie Lou Hamer shot. That was a James Meredith shot. Because had not that happened, Brother Holmes couldn't have gone to Mississippi State in the first place. That shot didn't come just out the gym. That came out of the blood of Fannie Lou Hamer and Meredith and out of those who had suffered so much in Mississippi. When I saw Mississippi State playing South Carolina, where the slave ships landed in the big game Sunday night, that was a king moment. When I saw Alabama playing Clemson in the big game, where last lynch against South Carolina was in Pickens County, where Willie Earl was lynched, and that is where Clemson is. From Alabama came where the Montgomery Boys boycott became. That said a lot to me. And now here we are today from Montgomery to Moscow. Our struggles are all over the world. And so we honor Dr. King, but we honor the best in ourselves. And I would urge you who are here today, don't just admire him, vote for him. And the big threat we have today is that there are 10 million beneficiaries of his work who are black, who didn't vote. Putin did not beat us, he disturbed us. Our staying home beat us. I say our staying home beat us. And our oppressed vote beat us. After all, the governor, the official from North Carolina celebrated, he said, we won the campaign because we kept blacks on campuses from not voting that day. Now, who would unapologetically steal a vote and call himself an advocate of democracy? That happened in North Carolina, in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, and it happened in Detroit. So the King movement and the struggle is alive, the resistance to the struggle. And so we thank God for sending Dr. King our way. When it gets real dark, and it got dark for him, don't give up. The Lord is our life and our salvation. Whom shall we to the Lord the strength of our lives? Weeping does occur every now and then. But if you hold on and hold out, joy cometh in the morning. Long live the stature and the life through us of Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we're now ready for the invocation.
Ladies and gentlemen, go over, look this way, we'll go grab our pictures. Thank you so much.
I want to acknowledge Mr. Withers and the wonderful museum that honors his work, his daughter, which continues the work, and the entire staff. And these photos are from his private collection.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program, but I hope everybody understands and acknowledges the significance of this. And so, okay. This concludes our program, but ladies and gentlemen, I hope everybody understands and acknowledges the significance of this program. And what I would like to do is show our appreciation by letting us acknowledge this by echoing our appreciation through this building. So everybody, let's keep going. Thank you. Lisa, where are you? If you need parking passes, if you park in the parking garage, Lisa will come down and hand out parking passes so that you can get out of the garage. Thank you, everybody.
Barely holding it together, bro. He's just barely holding it together, man. I get emotional every time I come through here.
Want to say anything to your followers?
All right.
Want to say anything to your followers?
Do what?
Want to say anything to your followers?
I know he's live. I'm just barely holding it together. I'm trying not to shed a tear, and I'll do it later. But I just get emotional every time I come through this place. I'll be right there. And I love Dr. King. I love all those who are heroes and sheroes in his movement that helped to give us freedom. I love this man, Andrew Young.
Let me slip through
No,
here just a minute.
it's live, my man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Turn around. Turn around. It's live, Facebook Live.
Oh, okay.
It's Ambassador Andrew Young, who was with Dr. King on that fateful flight. We want to say thank you to him for all that he's done to give every life and liberty to generations yet unborn. I love you all.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes, sir.
Bill Drees with the Daily News.
Hi, Bill.
Excuse me, Mr. Jordan.
why do you think that is?
It's the details of the storyline of my life. The details of the storyline of my life. You don't fall in love,
Hey, thank you so much.
Reverend Jackson, take a picture. Can we get a photo real quick?
I want to take a picture.
How are you? Good. 32 images.
How's it going? Good job. Do you want to say anything to the Operation Hope followers?
You gonna send it out?
Oh, this is live now.
Okay.
This is Lance, guys.
Hey, great day today. Very historical. Happy to be a part of it.
This is one to be have his life end with politicians in Washington or busy people that do. He wanted to be with poor people in Memphis. And when he came here, and then that day, the day after that mountaintop speech, he was so full of life. He was so easy. He was so relaxed, as if he had completely surrendered to the moment. And that's why they had that pillow fight. I think these details matter. Right? You're going to pray, why worry? You're going to worry, why pray? If you don't know what you're willing to die for, Dr. King said, you want to live. You don't know how long it is. You're dangerous. The question is not whether you die. Can I sleep? He's got survivor's right. So the least my generation is to live.
I'm not in your way.
You're not gonna take a vow of poverty. Okay, but at least donate 5% of your salary. At least donate 5% of your time. At least find a way to volunteer once a month in a local school and mentor a young person so they know who they can be. At least do something that's about something other than yourself. And in that way, we're paying it forward. And in that way, we're filling in the details of the story of the rest of that's
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't really get that. They did that. They did
Reverend Jackson Hope. You look for me. You are. They wanted me to do a Bryan double. That's my car. Just so happens my car. Thank God for it. Thank God for it. You got my car. This is our pastor.
Thank you so much.
Host pastor. Who work with us.
They're expensive to see me church tonight.
Church in Tennessee, 80 in Arkansas, and of course, senior churches across the nation. So we'll be I was just Right. Of course, the founder of CLC, Bishop Junior Smith. So we've all been.
All right.
Good.
Those that were in partners.
Yeah.
So he came in tonight.
A solution that was a win-win solution for everybody. And I think that much of the demonstration comes out of frustration. There's not tension between many police and many young people, or old people too. In fact, but it's not the police problem. The state legislatures created laws that require mandatory sentences. And so in the 80s, people thought that the way to deal with poverty was to put a lot of people in jail. But in Georgia, for instance, it costs $96,000 a year to keep somebody in jail. You can send them to college. You can send them to college, you know, for $10,000 a year. Or at Atlanta Metropolitan College for $2,000 a semester. But you can also get technical education in Atlanta area tech.
It's a big deal because banks invest bottom up. They money spending goes out and seeking. So reinvest even.
1, 2, 3, cheese. Like land. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Thank you.
Yes, I'm
That's the real photographer here.
Doing what you do, you know?
It's not bowling.
There you go. That was good.
It's a place where you create time.
There we go. She's talking to you. We thought we had this.
There we go.
Margaret will start you questions. Talk about the culmination of all your hard work and what this means.
I've been trying not to get emotional.